As we enter the final days of the campaign ahead of Election Day, the candidates are running out of time to make their policy promises known. And it's often a toss-up between detailing your own offering versus trashing the other side. This election, though, is unusual inasmuch as Donald Trump is a genuine threat to everyone's freedoms, not just Democrats. Republicans will suffer by the millions with Donald Trump's far-right Christian nationalist agenda, not to mention his climate change denial and threats of retribution. So Kamala Harris has had to spend half of her time exposing the risks of a Trump presidency in addition to explaining why Democrats would be a better choice for all Americans.
America, this is not a candidate for president who is thinking about how to make your life better. This is someone who is unstable, obsessed with revenge, consumed with grievance, and out for unchecked power.
As a European, I've never really understood why working-class Americans were drawn to the GOP, considering the GOP care nothing for working-class Americans. They've literally never had a policy that serves them. They just use them by finding common ground, blaming immigrants for all their woes, whilst at the same time investing nothing in the immigration system, which they constantly complain about. It's hypocritical, sure, but it's also intentional. Make their supporters angry, fearful, and aggrieved about a problem that barely affects them, and then have Trump TV channels repeat it so it becomes a hot-button issue. Have you seen those Trump supporters interviewed at rallies who blame immigrants for everything but have never actually come into contact with one? They've just heard it from Trump or Fox or Newsmax. And for the record, us immigrants don't bring drugs. We're not bad hombres. We seek to integrate, to serve, and to pay tax, and to be proud residents of this nation. And Vice President Harris also has to balance Trump's false claims of him being able to fix the economy. Remember, Trump is a fake billionaire from that TV show The Apprentice with the catchphrase, "You're fired," even though the producers chose who to fire. Playing Donald Trump is just that. It's an acting role.
Donald Trump has spent a decade trying to keep the American people divided and afraid of each other. That is who he is. But America, I am here tonight to say that is not who we are. That is not who we are.
On the economy, the Democrats could talk more about the fact that the economy is already on the mend. I mean, how much better does it get than the inflation gauge, closely watched by the Federal Reserve, which has dropped to near pre-pandemic levels? The Commerce Department just reported that prices rose just 2.1% in September from a year earlier, down from a 2.3% rise in August. That's barely above the Fed's 2% inflation target and in line with readings in 2018, well before prices began surging after the recession of the pandemic. For the past 6 months, core inflation has declined to a 2.3% annual rate, down from 2.5% in August. And economists still expect the Fed to cut its key rate by a quarter point when it meets next week. The disgraced former President Trump has largely blamed the Biden-Harris administration's energy policies and promised that inflation would vanish completely if he's elected. Vice President Harris has promised to ban price gouging for groceries and to reduce childcare and healthcare costs. Economists say that Trump's policies would actually worsen inflation, mainly because of his plans to impose these sweeping tariffs and embark on mass deportations of migrants and other immigrants. Today's report also showed that Americans remain confident enough in their finances to keep shopping. Spending jumped 0.5% from August to September, which helped the economy expand at a healthy clip in the July to September quarter. Donald Trump takes credit for Barack Obama's economy, which he inherited and rode the wave of until the pandemic hit. Trump has no track record of being good for the economy. He tells us, he coerces us, he brainwashes us into thinking that he did good stuff, but he didn't. If anything, his trade negotiations and tariffs contributed to the economic crash during the pandemic. Remember, it takes a year or two for these things to have an effect. The economy is a slow-moving beast. But right now, the United States is the world's single largest economy, accounting for almost 26% of global output and over a third of stock market capitalization. America is a success story. Sure, it might not feel like that, but that's because you're likely underpaid by your employer. That's the beauty of a free market economy and the disbursement of labor unions. Workers get a bad deal, and yet they think Trump is going to help.
It is time to turn the page on the drama and the conflict, the fear and division. It is time for a new generation of leadership in America.
Trump is everything that's wrong with America. The greed, the excessive wealth, the gold toilet, the branded aeroplane. Trump admitted recently that he hates paying overtime. So he sends those workers home and gets new people at the lower rate. He literally admitted that. Whereas Democrats have been fighting for workers' rights, equal pay, and supporting unions since forever. Republicans don't believe in any of that stuff. They don't even want a minimum wage. And they're the first to employ immigrants as cheap labor because they don't want to pay Americans a living wage.
I know a lot about overtime. I'd hated to give overtime. I hated it. I'd get other people, I shouldn't say this, but I'd get other people in I wouldn't pay.
More than half of the living US recipients of the Nobel Prize for Economics signed a letter recently that called Vice President Kamala Harris's economic agenda vastly superior to the plans laid out by Donald Trump. 23 Nobel Prize-winning economists signed on to the letter, including 2 of the 3 most recent recipients. The letter points to Trump's tariff and tax policies as inflationary and likely to balloon the federal deficit, a widely held view among economists. But it also issues a stark warning. Among the most important determinants of economic success are the rule of law and economic and political certainty. And Trump threatens all of these. Despite the warnings and forecasts from economists across the political spectrum, Trump has been steadfast in his pledge to wield threats of sweeping tariffs as a cornerstone of his economic agenda. He fails to accept the fact that tariffs are paid for by us, the importers, and not China or whichever exporting country. His entire economic policy is built on a lie. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris plans to tax the super rich, something that should have been done decades ago. The rich have just got richer, and they can easily afford to plug the gaps in public spending if only they paid their fair share. I mean, how much money do these people need?
Donald Trump would deliver tax cuts to his billionaire donors. I will deliver tax cuts to working people and the middle class.
Elon Musk's wealth gain was his 3rd largest ever this year, and brought his fortune to $270 billion, $61 billion ahead of second-place Jeff Bezos. America is home to over 750 billionaires. Their estimated combined wealth is almost $5 trillion, an amount that grew 50% since the pandemic. Let them pay their fair share. Rather than working people struggling to make $50,000 cover their family and cost of living, under the Democrats, nobody making less than $400,000 a year will pay a penny more in tax. Trump supporters need to hear this. They need to know that they're voting for the wrong team. Kamala Harris promises to be a president for all Americans, Democrat and Republican, libertarian and none of the above. Trump calls anyone who doesn't support him the enemy from within.
I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within.
Most of the Trump supporters' argument for supporting him are based on lies they've heard about Democrats, rather than anything positive that Trump offers them. I mean, he said out loud, "I don't care about you. I just want your vote."
I don't care about you. I just want your vote. I don't care.
A vote for Trump is all about Trump. A vote for Harris is all about America.
Let us fight for this beautiful country we love. Each of you has the power to turn the page and start writing the next chapter in the most extraordinary story ever told.
I'm Anthony Davis. You can find me on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel and podcast, on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered, and on Sunday on The Weekend Show with Midas Touch.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the Midas Touch newsletter at MidasTouch.com/newsletter.